come in. We'll start in about 10 to 12 minutes. Thank you again. Please just bear with us for about 10-15 minutes and we'll be started. Thank you. And, as it's traditionally said, a very warm welcome. But more than that, I'd like to say I'm very excited to see all of you here. I have to apologize to people for the delayed start, especially people who came in early. I sincerely appreciate people coming on time. I don't understand what 5 minutes long. Let me introduce myself. I'm Hoshi Gaswala. I head up the media business at Cybermedia as the CEO and editor-in-chief. I'm seeing a lot of sober faces here. Normally when I introduce myself as Hoshi Gaswala in the place I live now, people wonder whether it's the start of a comedy act or a stand-up comedy act, because Gaswala is not a name that's kind of heard there. So I head up this business at Cybermedia, the media business, editorially as well as business-wise. We are here today, thanks to SIFI putting this event together. All of you know about SIFI. I've known about SIFI for ages, right from the time they acquired India World, or before that. But SIFI is a much transformed company, a complete end-to-end ISV, does a lot of other things. I've been working with SIFI for a while now. I don't work for SIFI, but we do a lot of work for them. And one wonderful thing that I kind of see is the way they have integrated technology into creating business benefits, and that's what we're going to kind of discuss here today. At least the SIFI session is going to focus on that. The objective of this event is basically, there's huge amount of data explosion. I don't want to use, but I have to say the used or much abused thing that data is the new currency. Okay, but we're going to discuss on how to handle data, from a business perspective as well as from a technology perspective. Let me run you all through. We're running late, so I'll run you all through the sessions that we have today. We're going to start with our chief guest, Vishal Mehta. He's going to do the opening address. We're then going to have a session on SIFI, from SIFI. Then there's going to be a panel that I'm going to be doing. Then we get into an IBM session. These are around how to use, both the SIFI and IBM sessions, big data effectively and how to handle it. And then we've got our closing keynoter, Dr. Vipin Kumar of the National Innovation Foundation. There is a note on your table. Okay, there is this. Can you put up that slide, please? There is this thing on your table, which is a Twitter contest that is being run for 3 days. So you have to follow SIFI Corp, okay, and then the person who does the maximum tweets at #datacenter @ SIFI Tech over 3 days. There are going to be 3 winners that are going to win a prize. So you guys can start tweeting now. You can tweet. We're going to keep you busy over the weekend tweeting. So 3 of you win a prize. So sorry. Okay. So you can begin tweeting now. But before that, you'll have to follow SIFI Tech on Twitter. How many of you are on Twitter here, by the way? We're going to have a challenge selecting. Their digital expert is going to select the winner. Okay. Housekeeping, one announcement. Guys, please keep your mobiles on silent. Without any further ado, I'm now going to introduce our keynote speaker and chief guest, Vishal Mehta. I don't think he needs an introduction. He's a founder at Infibeam. And he's from a large business family but decided to move out on his own. I couldn't think of a speaker better than him. I was talking to him and he said, we have billions of transactions per month, and would like to hand over to Mr. Mehta to come and talk about his journey, how technology has benefited. We're all running short of time, so he also has to leave. So I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I've been told to talk for 10-15 minutes about the business that I run, as well as some of the things that we actually gain using technology. What I'd like to do, and I think to many of you, I believe a lot of insights have to come in terms of, listen, what is technology doing? How is it going to transform? What is the future going to look like? I think I've actually, taken a compartmentalized approach in terms of maybe thinking through it, because technology is such a wide term, and everyone has a mental model of what it means. Some people think of technology as a communication layer. Some people think of technology in terms of software layers. Some people think of technology in terms of hardware. Some think of technology in terms of data and data analytics, and so on and so forth. So, I think that, in terms of, just thinking through, okay, each of these layers and what's happening in each of these layers, and there's a lot happening. It's incredible in terms of the pace at which things are changing, updating, so on and so forth. So what I thought was, maybe 5-10 years ago, people were talking about thinking of compartmentalizing technology in terms of gold rush. Okay, that listen, there's a lot of money there, so let's actually think of building a technology framework or a technology company. And then we'll also talk about utilities and how thinking of how technology works in terms of utilities becomes more relevant, important, both in the short and long term. But I want to maybe walk you through some live cases that we work with in terms of engaging with clients, and some of the things that they're thinking about and what they're trying to solve using technology, and how does that work in terms of business models and so on and so forth, which gives you some insight. To give you just a short background of my company, we started about 10 years ago, and we've been in this e-commerce enabling business for the last 10 years. And what that does is it allows us to work with many clients across many different verticals. The basic premise that we wanted to start out with 10 years ago was that can we use something called cloud computing. Then it's not very common. It's a very household name or word now. And even, I believe that in this room, a lot of people understand what that means. Maybe outside, people don't. They know the word, but no, it's very hard to understand, the specifics and so on and so forth. Which is like how people think of 4G at the moment. So, what we do is we provide these frameworks, and I want to walk you through some interesting things that we observe, which is going on. We provide our digital enabling services to clients and merchants and many others in India as well as overseas. That's the technology part of our business, and then we also have a supply chain part of our business that I think I'd cover some other time. To walk you through some examples, there's a client who we work with, and they're based in the Middle East. And how many people have a 4G handset, by the way? You raise your hand. All right, 4G enabled. Okay, all right, cool. So the interesting thing is that the reason why people essentially use 4G handsets is better data speeds, right? That's basically the premise that I can actually get 100 Mbps or 1 gig, and that's fast, it's quick. You can do so many things. I save time, I can actually watch videos, and I can play games, many other things, right? But the interesting thing is that how many people get the network of 4G everywhere? Okay, that's the interesting part, right? So as a consumer, what you care about is not 4G, you care about speeds, all right? And when you talk about speeds, the interesting part is that I may not be on a 4G, I'm on a 3G network, and I'm on Airtel. Maybe the signal over here is not coming, but the idea guy was sitting next to me, the signal is actually very powerful. Does that happen to a lot of us? It does, right? All right. So the interesting is why? Why can't there be some kind of a network so that I can just get the best network out there? Why do I have to think about hey, listen, I'm subscribed into one particular telco where the network is strong, because the same network is not strong outside this room and it's strong inside the room possibly, okay, and vice versa. So as a user, most users will care about, I just want the best network, okay? And the framework to be thinking about is that, is there an Uber out there? A lot of people over here should be knowing the Uber business model, not own the asset, own the network, okay, or the user, if you will, the user engagement. But isn't there something whereby you can think about a Uber kind of a framework, where you say that, listen, I don't want to be connected, or I don't want to just think about one particular network, okay, and I don't want to actually sign up with one network, all right, but I want to sign up with somebody who can actually provide me the best network wherever I'm there, and I want to ride on top of everyone, right? People use the word, it's very common, I actually learned these words, by the way. I'm not a telco guy, but I know about this word, many of you will, which is called Mobile Virtual Network Operator. You heard of that? Yeah, many of you? It's called MVNO. So when you think about MVNOs in this world, and then you say that, listen, an MVNO is not owning the network, they will work with the network operator to provide you a service. A case in point being Virgin Mobile, okay? They don't own the network, but they will provide you a service because they don't, as a user, you don't care who the backend provider is, you know Virgin, okay? As a network. So there's this concept called mobile virtual network operator. The unfortunate part in that framework is that the mobile virtual network operator only works with one operator. Okay, they actually sign up at the back end with perhaps one operator, whoever that operator is, and then they use that network. All right. But why isn't it possible that one particular MVNO can use multiple operators at the back end? Correct. So that I can actually go and pipe and I can figure out what is the best network for that user, whoever that user is of mine. And I can work across different networks, which means that I'm sitting on top of one network, I can sit on top of 5 networks. And then I can go and figure out that, hey, listen, does that make more sense or does that not make so much sense? But guess what? It doesn't end there, right? Because now you go back and say, okay, even if I figure out that switching algorithms, which is the data and the analytics and the setups and the frameworks that would require you to be able to set that kind of a framework in an MVNO so that the user can switch. So, I mean, user does not have to manually go and switch, but the network switches automatically without you knowing it, because all you care about is the network that actually works. Well, the next phase starts, which is that for the user, is there a SIM card that will work across all, right? Like something which is like a universal SIM card, all right? Which is actually, and by the way, I'll tell you that, Apple now supports it and Android also supports it. I'll tell you, it's a reality, okay? I can switch between operators. And in fact, which means that it's just the SIM card, the operating system, the software has to support it, right? To be able to go back and drive that framework so that, people manually don't have to switch it. Okay, so the SIM card works across all. So now we've gone from a communication layer to a hardware layer to a user, and then you say that, okay, now I know I have a universal SIM card that will switch, an MVNO which can algorithmically figure out what is the best network wherever the user is, so that the user is not signed up with one network and you don't need portability. What is the whole point of portability? Maybe cost or whatever it may be, right? Then there's another layer, which you go back and say, okay, how does the hardware figure out what is the best network? Because it's hardware dependent, right? Some people have 4G, some people don't have 4G. We have 3G, right? So, am I able to figure out the RF signal on the phone? Okay, and are you able to go and figure out that what is the best RF signal? Does it work or does it not work across? Okay, which becomes even more interesting. Because then you need to have some kind of an application or some software that goes and figures out that based on my handset, what is the best RF signal for the network that I want to operate. And so as a result, completely idiot-proof. You don't have to think about whether it is 4G, 3G, 2G, whatever it may be, all right? And it actually works. And that will be like an Uber, of a telco network, which is kind of cool, all right? Having said that, maybe the answer is WhatsApp. You don't know, right? Because WhatsApp, I can do phones, I don't care about what network. Basically, I use it for my data calls, whatever you call it, right? So I think that, this is very interesting because what I'm trying to get to is it's not one layer. Okay? Technology is like multiple layers which are coming together to be able to go and drive a business, a proposition, a better experience for a user and the user engagement as well. And then between those layers, there's a business model that has to emerge which actually supports the underlying behavior of all these different changes that happen across different layers of technology. Which becomes exciting because then you go back and think about it and say, do you want to be asset light? Do you want to be asset heavy? Do you not want to own the network? Do you want to own the network and asset? Do you want user engagement? Do you not want user engagement? Do you want to collect data? How will you use that data to be able to go back and make it better, smarter, richer every day? Is there a way to use intelligence? Is there a way? I will tell you, I promise you, I actually graduated about 15 years ago, right? Actually, it was 17 years. And 17 years ago, my first thesis was on neural networks, all right? It was artificial intelligence. It's like mixed and linear programs to figure out what, how do you essentially make it smarter, better, what do you call it, regressions, okay? This is 17 years ago. And even today, people talk about artificial intelligence. And it's becoming smarter, it's becoming more easily, the things that took a long time doesn't take so much, okay? Computing is becoming faster, right? So in other words, you can use neural networks to predict weather, okay? It's even better, it's interesting. Right? Or I can essentially use neural networks to go and figure out, maybe secondary opinion for air traffic controllers to be able to go and figure out, what is separation distance, separation velocities, and how does it work, and how does it come together, and Does it make sense so that I can alert that traffic controller about a near collision situation, which is even smarter, right? Or I can go and figure out that, listen, earlier mammograms were 2D, right? Now you can have 3D mammograms, it's even better. There's more data, richer information. And so as a result, I want to actually go and figure out, using that data, what is microcalcification, what's the property of cancer, because you can't solve, you can cure cancer, but you're early detecting, you can cure it. And so I want early detection, and so maybe a radiologist will miss it. But can I use that 3D mammogram? Can I use all that data, and can I actually assimilate something, and can I figure out through artificial intelligence what is going to be microcalcification, what is cancer, and how does it actually progress? And here, listen, there's an early detection system which is even smarter, right? And people talk about Internet of Things, and people talk about intelligence into homes, and people talk about intelligence everywhere. And it is some kind of a neural network behind it that does the job. So I think the theories have not changed. I think the underlying frameworks of computing, software, the ability to not have to recreate things. I can build up on top of existing things, right? And I can do it faster and better, gives the momentum. And that momentum actually gives a lot of opportunities for business to actually expand, become larger, richer. And that's the exciting thing for everyone out here, in my opinion. And I think, my excitement, of course, when I started my, journey, it started with the fact that, hey, listen, can I actually offer affordable computing and affordable shops? And, this whole concept of shops and so on and so forth, that kind of becomes narrow when you actually live into it and say, hey, listen, my concept and definition of what a shop is actually changes. Okay? I don't need to actually just think about giving a software or a framework or so on and so forth. Let me give you surrounding value-added services, because that's what you require. Let me actually work on solving a problem. So, to my point, this case of what I talked about in terms of telcos and so on and so forth, this innovation is happening globally. It's happening in parts of the world that we don't know of, that we are not aware of. We've actually given the framework to someone who actually wants to do something similar. I think this information that I'm talking about is not uncommon. Maybe some of you may have heard of some specifics and so on and so forth. Not many people adapt and try it out. I'll give another example, and I think that that's also very interesting. In e-commerce, everyone knows e-commerce, right? And the mental model there is very similar. And a lot of people actually ask me, how do you make money in e-commerce? Don't ask me that question. I will tell you, we know, but it's very interesting actually. There's no right or wrong answer. So in e-commerce, the most interesting thing that happens is that, this is my theory back in the day, about 15, 20 years ago, that someone will go back and say, let me actually go and spend a few $100 million, and acquire as many customers as I want. Because if I want to think about a business which is 20, 25 years, you can't build a retail business and make it profitable in 2 years, right? I mean, you have to think at least 10 years. That's one of those things, right? You have to think slightly long term. So the objective there was that you have to think about building a long-term sustainable business, and rather than spending, if you're going to spend 50 rupees, just hypothetically speaking, in a period of 10 years, then typically most people do is they spend 5 or 10 rupees every year for 10 years and go and figure out how to acquire and become profitable. There's a different way to think about it. Listen, let me spend 50 rupees in 2 years and then figure out how to become profitable for the remainder rate. Not a bad idea. Okay? I mentally amortize the cost of whatever I do over a period of 10 years while I spend in 2 years. Okay? Nothing wrong in that. It's very cool. And it worked. It worked beautifully because nobody thought about it. It's very simple. I was doing the same thing, but I'm going back and saying that I have a different philosophy and I'm going to go back and think about amortizing the cost. Perfect. The problem starts when everyone starts doing the same thing. Which means that now the amortization of 50 becomes 500, unless you have 500 instead of 50, and you go and think about it, then there's an arbitrage, 500 over 10 years and so on and so forth, right? So you have to completely, things have changed. I will tell you, the generation gap that I talk about, I've got 2 kids, one is 6 and second is 9, I have a generation gap between the 2. I used to talk about generation gaps between kids, which are like 15 years apart. Now it's 3 years, right? And I'll give you one more example before I stop. FinTech, finance and technology. We're one of the largest shareholders in a company called CC Avenue. CC Avenue is a payment gateway company. They provide payment processing to some of the merchants in India. They're one of the largest payment processors in the country. They're also clients to Sifi. Okay. So in that, the interesting part is that, I will tell you, the financial systems in India for businesses very hard to get a loan. I can promise you that. Which is, if you want to go get a loan, you have to apply 105 pages, of paperwork to be able to go back and get a loan. All right, and you need to have a collateral, without which you can't. It's very hard, and I'm not saying you can't. It's very, very hard. And a small business who's out there, we realize that, listen, people want to sell, but they don't have money. What is I realize, and I know it's true, people just don't realize it, the thing which is in scarcity in this entire country is money for any business. So the guy who wants like 5 is iPhone 7, which is launching, okay, very shortly, and I'm like a small shop, mobile shop, and I'm selling mobile phones, and I know it is going to be in short supply. I know I can make money, okay, very easy. I want 10 lakh rupees. Where will you get 10 lakh rupees? Do you think he can give his balance sheet, income statement, and so on and so forth to a bank and say, I want 10 lakh rupees? Do you think they'll give them? Very hard, no? No? He knows, he's a trader, he knows he can make money. So he has to borrow from somebody. And when he borrows from somebody, then he goes back and says, okay, you know what? I will give you 3% interest a month. Right? Because he knows that 10 lakh rupees will give him a lakh rupee advantage, and he does not mind paying that interest. And the interesting part is that there's this whole opportunity which is open because, okay, yes, you were SIFI or Infibeam, maybe Cyber Media, okay, you will get loan, but other people don't get loans. And he has a business proposition and he knows, or she knows, that I can actually make money out of this. And then there's this whole thing in a bank which is called like a credit rating manager. I just don't even know the concept of what that means, by the way, because can you use data? Why do I have a credit rating manager, correct? Why can't credit be like, figure, okay, I know, give me your, okay, by the way, I think that bank statement is real in India. I think that, I would think that, balance sheet, income statement, fine, but bank statements are always real. So what is the money that has come in, what is money that has come out? Can I actually go back and take a call on you and say that, you do 100 rupees of business, I can lend you 5 rupees. I don't have a problem. I will not lend you 100. And through that, you can actually go and figure out if you're an NBFC. I know there's somebody who gave me a card from an NBFC world that, listen, there's an opportunity that I can actually open up and I can, make it a win-win situation where I know that, I want to give a loan only for a period of 3 months. I don't want to do it for 1 year, and I can actually make money. Because in 3 months I will know what the NPA is, and I will know whether it is actually going to work or not, and the cost of borrowing may be 10-12%, and I can perhaps lend it. There's lots of interesting models. Very, very interesting world. And we see a lot of that, given that we provide the frameworks, to many of these companies to just innovate on top of us. Because we believe that, I think, it's not possible to experiment. They reduce the cost of experiment, but it actually becomes a business for us, all right? I'm going to stop my presentation over here. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to meeting some of you. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay, I think there are no questions. May I request, Mr. Mehta to just come back on stage for a second, and Arvind Saxena, who's the CMO of SIFI, to give him a small token of our appreciation. I'm sure you might be selling these on your website. Thank you. I have to thank you for agreeing. I couldn't think of for coming and doing this of a better speaker, and my apologies. I know you have another meeting to catch, so my apologies for the delay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Shikhar. I'm going to be here for a bit, so. Folks, our next session is around the theme of this event, which is transformation through next generation data centers. And we've got a specialist from SIFI, okay, Hirak Mukherjee, who was talking to me. He's done 15 years in IBM too, and he's been at SIFI. If I could speak as well as him about next generation data centers, I think I'd be working for SIFI and doing this session. No, but we are in the business as media also giving gyan, so I'm going to hand over to Hirak and let him kind of take over from here. Hirak, over to you.
And just to take a cue from what Mr. Mehta was saying, that it's not just difficult to get loans in India. These days, banks have started a very interesting thing, which I just heard. They've with businesses which has a fairly large exposure, they've started taking the passport of the promoter, and that's a safe key. It's not a part of the debt recovery tribunal norms, but they have just started taking it in safe custody, just in case you don't decide one night that India was not a pleasant place any longer. Right, so remote, है? काम करता? It's okay, thank you. So today I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that we see in digital transformation world, and you probably have heard or seen some of it, and I was not very impressed with the screen, so maybe you won't be able to see the screen, but doesn't matter. This is how the world kind of, in the world of technology, it kind of progressed, right from magnetic tapes. And I was talking to somebody, and he told me that, look, it has taken a long, big circle. 50 years back, I'm not very sure how many people really saw the world of technology then, but about 50 years back in the 60s and early 70s, the way technology used to be run was, IBM had those big data centers in different places, and customers would walk in with their magnetic tapes and walk out with reams of printouts. And that's how computing used to be done, which later moved and became EDP center, etc. And this gentleman told me that technology has taken a big round circle and gone back, because now we are talking about commercial data centers, which we are. And it's precisely the way it used to be run then. There's only one difference. Now customers don't run around. Apparently a few electrons run around through a network. That's about it. But it has gone back to those days. And we've traveled all the way, and today we talk about multiple cloud centers all connected, underlying networks. And here's where the next generation stuff is coming up, which is the software-defined network, which is a fairly interesting thing as well. All right. So some of the things which are happening here, and Vishal also mentioned that he had done some work in the areas of artificial neural network and artificial intelligence. Interestingly, that entire research started in the 60s. The 1960s is when artificial intelligence started, and it fell off the radar in the 80s, and then has come up again, primarily because of one very interesting acceptance. Computer scientists always believed that the human brain works like a computer. So it has different blocks. It has a central processing unit somewhere here, and it has I/O, which is all this stuff, and then it delivers, which is the mouth and writing, etc., etc. And this belief went on for about 20 odd years, when they finally realized that the human brain really doesn't work like a digital computer. And then they started changing the whole thing around and created networks which started simulating the human brain. And that's where you see the artificial neural networks happening, and the whole subject of soft computing, which has artificial neural networks, and there is something called genetic algorithm, because scientists are figuring out how the genetic structure of the human body works and how it can actually be replicated in computer science. So that's the reason why there's a lot of activity happening there, and of course a lot of activity happening in the areas of machine learning, which is a subsystem of artificial intelligence. What is very interesting is there are new business models which are coming up because of this, and it is impacting a lot of these industries. And let's talk about healthcare. There is phenomenal stuff happening in healthcare, phenomenal. Today, there is a small little device which you can actually connect to your smartphones. That device can simply sniff your breath and do a quick calculation and fairly accurately predict the propensity for cardiac diseases, stroke, paralytic strokes, dementia. It's a small little device, doesn't cost much, connects to either the USB port or the micro USB port of your smartphones. There is a small little device which is available today which can actually measure 50 different vital parameters of the body without going to a healthcare professional, without going to a doctor, without going to a hospital, and can actually transmit it digitally to the healthcare professionals. The Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab in the US, what they've done is they've been able to put robotic arms on a double shoulder amputee and get him to control the arms with his thought. There's no external stimulant. I know Ahmedabad is fairly big in the pharmaceutical area, and look at how the entire distribution side of the pharmaceutical industry is getting impacted. A couple of weeks back in Bombay, that's where I live and work out of, I met a couple of startup companies, and these two companies are in the distribution side of pharma, medicine distribution. And they've come together, they've merged. What is very interesting is both these companies have got funded, and together they're sitting on 1,200 crores of capital. 1,200 crores. And they are trying to figure out how they can completely change the entire distribution side of pharma distribution using technology. So they're basically shopping with a bulk of the money. There's so much money that half the time they don't know what to do with it. But the other half, they're actually trying to scout for interesting tech companies which will kind of impact what they're trying to do. Retail, most of you know what's happening in the retail domain and logistics. There's a very interesting video which from SIFI which I actually love, which is the story of the India Post. And a few years back, India Post came out with a requirement to connect all their post offices, and they have about 28,000 post offices around the world. SIFI did that project. It was a massive project. It connected 28,000 post offices with 60,000 links, etc., etc. So technically, that was a great project, great things. But what happened was, and this is interesting because India Post is a government department. India Post started on a journey of transformation from being a pure post operator. They said that we will move to logistics. Okay, they said that we will move to banking, and now they're saying that if we reach 28,000 locations in the country, both urban, semi-urban and rural, if we have banking and payment happening, if we have logistics happening, what stops us from becoming the country's largest retail company? So that friendly neighborhood postman, from that onwards to a retail and maybe a retail e-com player, a government undertaking. It's an amazing story of transformation simply based on what they acquired through a network. Some of the industries are very real, and people talk about this pure digital business, which is kind of strange and bizarre. It cannot happen like manufacturing. No matter what you need to manufacture, it's not virtual, it's real. But it also has some connotation around it which can impact, and I don't know how many of you have heard. Very recently there was an incident which happened in Calcutta in a restaurant. Has anybody read that on Facebook or something? As you have. So there was this lady who walked into this restaurant in the Park Street area of Calcutta with her chauffeur, and the restaurant did not allow her to come in, primarily because they felt that the chauffeur was not dressed adequately enough for the restaurant. And she wrote this and was on the on digital media, and it went viral, etc., etc. You may know that I am originally from that city, and I have been to that restaurant. There's nothing virtual about it. It's a real restaurant, and with really good food. I've eaten there many times. The only problem was that they never could imagine that being a physical entity with absolutely no virtual presence, they're probably a trending brand now. Maybe for the wrong reasons, but a trending brand. And that's one aspect of digital business and digital transformation which a lot of customers are worried about. Now, a lot of these transformations, these discussions are happening in different boardrooms. I know some of these discussions are probably happening in some of your boardrooms. In many parts of the world, some of these discussions, the technology folks are actually present in those discussions. Very interestingly, in some of those cases, the technology people actually initiate those discussions. We are a bit further away from that in India, but that's what's happening around the world with your colleagues. So, what is the digital ecosystem like if this starts working? When it works in such a big... It is a digital unit, and either I'm too old for digital technology or this is too young. So anyway, I'm not going to experiment with it too much. So there are 2-3 things which is happening. The consumer, the enterprise, and the service provider should come up here. That's it. Now, one thing which is happening, and it happened a few years back with the financial services industry, where disintermediation happened. You aware of this term, disintermediation? Yes, some of you are. The top part is an example of disintermediation where enterprises and consumers are directly dealing with each other. Now, yes, of course, in a retail environment it happens, in a bank and financial institution it is happening now, earlier it never used to. But in core enterprises, for example, pharmaceutical companies, it doesn't happen. And pharmaceutical companies, their classical business model of MedRep-driven business model is now coming under a lot of threat, primarily because of this new generation of well-funded startups which are trying to dismantle that entirely. So this is a very interesting phenomenon which is happening, which is disintermediation between the enterprise and the consumer. So if all this is happening, then what's our play in Citi? What do we do? And there are quite a few interesting, exciting, busy charts. But let me first summarize it for you so that you can follow it very easily. There are broadly 4 things which Citi does as a company. 4 things. Firstly, it provides cloud infrastructure through data centers that we have. We've got about 6 data centers around the country. The 7th one is coming up. There's a large cloud infrastructure. Different flavors of cloud: private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, all combinations and permutations. But firstly, cloud infrastructure. Second, a network. And it's now the country's largest MPLS network, but this network is now evolving into the new stage. And there is one chart on that, and I'll try and show you that. And it's called the SMACnet. Primarily because of this new type of business which is happening, the new type of digital data which is happening. Normal, usual, traditional networks are not very good for that because everything is now becoming as per consumption. Okay, you're consuming digital data, and therefore even the network should probably be on a consumption model which the current networks do not allow. So the next generation network which Citi is trying to build, called the SMACnet, will be in such a manner that you can actually consume certain amount of data, and therefore the commercial models will also change. So that's the second thing, cloud, the network. The third thing which SIPI does is it puts things together for it to work. Puts things together. In the technology industry, we call this system integration. Basically, getting a lot of things together and putting stuff together. So if you were to go and buy some stuff and kit from IBM and maybe networking from Cisco or somebody else, we can take all this, put together and make it work for you. So that's the third thing we do. And finally, the fourth thing that we do is we can run and manage all this for you. So once you've got this, it's up and running, we run it, we manage it for you so that you don't have to worry about the operational aspects of running technology. So these are the four things. Cloud, the network, we put things together for you and we run and manage. Simply put. Underlying, this is how it is. So different flavors of cloud, which goes to serve this philosophy. And this is the kind of trends that we are seeing. And these are some of the challenges that we're seeing. I had the privilege of a sneak preview of IBM's presentation, so they'll probably talk a lot about SAP and HANA, etc. We see a lot of movement happening in the virtualization space for HANA. We started this practice in about a year and a half back. In about 18 months, we've got more than 30 clients nationally. And you may think that it's a very modest number. Yes, it is. But for us, 30 clients on a virtualized HANA environment, which basically runs the client's lifeline, is not too modest, honestly. So we've seen that happening. Now, we've also started seeing selective adaptation of open source. Earlier, open source was kind of a bad word, but now we've seen selective adaptation happening. One of the things which we see is that this cloud and the combination of private, public, hybrid, all of this stuff is impacting the buying patterns, because the way you structure the commerce part of it or the contract is completely changing. It's not fixed fees anymore. It's purely based on consumption. And very interestingly, we see a lot of public sector companies actually taking advantage of it, and I'll probably at the end just leave you with one such example. So this is basically what I talked about. The entire orchestra of what we do is broadly in those four areas. And underneath those, there are different service lines that happens. I mean, including if you really wanted to buy some hardware from us, maybe an IBM hardware from SIPI, SIPI is very happy to actually do it for you. So those are underlying different service lines and different business lines. But broadly, those are the four things that we do. Okay. Here's the new concepts of data centers and cloud centers. And please remember that there is, with this invent of the Internet of Things, there's a lot of data which is getting generated in a decentralized format. So if you are a manufacturing company and you may have your data center centralized either in your own location or our location, hopefully our location, or even then, not a problem. But the data, because of Internet of Things, is getting generated on the shop floor. The data, because of Internet of Things, is getting generated at the sales rep level, which is right in the field, which is further away from the data center. Now, earlier, you would take that data and use nice thick pipes of network from people like us, SIPI, and bring that data in, which we would love because that's a lot of money for us. But now, there is a lot of analytics also happening at the edge, at those points. Those are called thin layers of analytics. interesting mathematical models and interesting statistical models. And so that can get done there itself. You don't need to bring all of that back into one big monolithic center. Given that scenario, and given what is happening in the public and private cloud environment, this is the new network which is getting designed. It's completely software designed network. Primarily because, as I said, those fixed line networks which we have today is not any longer suitable for the new type of things which is happening. Okay? And along with IoT, machine learning is redefining a lot of stuff. Vishal did talk about some of the things on machine learning. It's one of the most interesting aspects. I do a lot of bit of research on that area as well, and that's redefining. So to be able to support that, you need newer kind of infrastructure, which is what is coming out now. So that's the digital plane that we have. The cloud centers, the new age network, the ability to put things together and work for you, and the ability to run and manage stuff for you. And finally, I'll leave you with a couple of examples. Doesn't want to stay on the chart I wanted to. Sorry? Yeah, as I'm saying that either I'm growing old or this thing just doesn't seem to work.
Generation gap.
Well, it's tough to accept standing on a stage that you're getting old, but never mind. So, as I said that, utilities, and this is the power distribution company in Uttar Pradesh, UP Power Company Limited. So they have about 52 lakh consumers, like you're probably the consumers of your local electricity board. And they decided to get SIPI to run their entire technology, and the payment mechanism is per consumption. So the calculation is based on per bill. So every time they send out a bill, they are able to calculate along with us how much money is payable to SIPI as a company, and our revenues from them are kind of in line with their revenues from their customers, and that's possible because of this new way of doing things. And the other thing that I like to talk about on the healthcare is we've done the entire Max chain of hospitals, and there also the mechanism of payment has moved from the fixed fee, fixed cost areas to per patient kind of billing systems. Now this is possible primarily because of this new way of doing things, and we've seen that there's a lot of cost savings available for clients on that as well. But that's honestly besides the point. It's you get it. It's good to have, but what is more important is the new age stuff which is happening is all happening on this kind of environment. So if you are thinking of getting there, then this is something which you should kind of seriously take a look at. You just press that button to go to the next. And as we work with technology giants like IBM, where they bring in a lot of technology and technology transformation, and the winning proposition is of agility and a lot of services transformation that CIFI brings in, and together this is what we are able to do. Again, skip the charts, but let me just talk about it. So, core technology comes in from companies like IBM, and we use it in our cloud centers, on our networks, our services capabilities, and kind of put all of that together for your use. And this partnership is important for us as well. And I know that as a company they do very interesting work, and I had the privilege of working with them in the past. And I remember for an Ahmedabad-based client many years back, there's a pharma company, and we took the head of their R&D to one of the labs, which is the Computational Biology Research Center in Hawthorne, Connecticut, and they were shown some of the stuff that was going on. So the point is, the R&D folks there in the pharma company were kind of surprised that a tech company was doing this. What I'm trying to say is that technology companies today are not only fully capable of addressing IT management, which more or less is a passé these days, but they are doing work which is at the cutting edge. And the idea is for most clients to try and take advantage of that. And that's the message that we're trying to give to you, that look, it's not just about IT management. There is more and beyond that can be achieved together if you are willing to just have a conversation. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, and I hope you have a great evening.